Hello and welcome to this week's IG Live. I am so excited today to be talking to Akosua Harvey. You may remember that we are doing a giveaway of her book this week, so you only have until midnight today to enter, so don't miss out. It's a really amazing YA fantasy novel, and we're going to be talking to her more about the inspiration behind the book and why it has such an important message for kids. So listen to the interview, then go and sign up for the giveaway. It's very easy to do. Only takes a few minutes, but you only have today to do it. So again, we come to you usually every Thursday. You may notice that we're typically on at 2 o'clock. Today it's 1 o'clock Eastern, so you should always watch for the announcements. But we'll come to you every week with interviews with creators of diverse books for kids and teens. And your support makes that happen, whether it's through a donation to our nonprofit or whether you share it in your stories, like our posts. All of that really helps other people be able to find it as well. Hello, everybody, and thank you. And we are excited to get the interview started soon. Hang on just a minute. Akosua Harvey, who is an educator, a medium, and a writer. And we're going to be talking to her about her YA fantasy novelist third stories. Hi.
Hello, it's good to see you again.
It's so good to see you again. I feel like we just talked.
I know, right?
Well, welcome. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to people who maybe don't know you and tell us, what was your journey to becoming an author? Was that something you always wanted to do?
Oh, wow. So my name is Akosua Laura Jean Faye Harvey. I go by Kosi or Faye. I'm an educator. I'm an author, the author of Blog Verse by Back. And wow, that's a great question. No. I actually kind of like fell into the fell into authorship, if you will. I was focused on my athleticism when I was younger. I ran track and I played soccer, and I just knew that that's where my life was going to take me. But in high school, I had a really tough injury. I tore my ACL a couple times, and that kind of like ended my career in athletics. And I think it's pretty poetic how when I stopped running, I started writing. I had to kind of like find a different way to express myself and kind of get, work through all of the teen things and stuff like that. So I started writing poetry in college and kind of found out I was decent at that, and had the opportunity to participate in some major poetry slams representing my university at St. John's up in Queens, New York. And after a while, the poetry scene didn't feel like what I needed. Writing had become a source of healing and an outlet for me, and competitive writing was just not really my scene. So I was looking for other outlets. And so I started like maybe screenplay, but nothing had enough space. And so I was like, okay, well, let's try novel writing. And that's what kind of ended up that's how I ended up here.
And you're also an educator. I mean, you're a teacher. So how does that work inspire your writing and vice versa? Because I remember, if people aren't following you on Instagram, they really should be. You have a really sweet one where some of your students kind of surprised you and showed that your book was in the school library. So it must be so inspiring for them to know that you're a writer and that you have this novel out.
Yeah, I think that is one of my favorite intersections in my life. I teach math, which is like, it seems like very separate from literature, but I truly do see math as a story that just like all the puzzle pieces fit, which is fun, especially when you have an experience of like writing a novel and kind of doing that from a very different perspective. But as a teacher, seeing my students interact with something that in the past I had kept very separate from my professional career is, I don't know, like it's just as inspiring to me as it is to them, I imagine. It it's like it kind of gives me chills sometimes to think about how my students have an example in me of somebody who can be multifaceted. Like you don't have to just pick one thing to do. You can do all the things. Just it's just a balancing act sometimes. And they remind me why we have to follow our dreams, even if they seem very like they're going in very different directions.
Well, so let's talk about that a little bit because you do have a unique background for somebody who's writing a fantasy novel. Like you have background in physics and science literacy, you're teaching math. How do you think that makes your fiction writing kind of unique? Especially, I would think as an educator, that helps you kind of make it accessible for young people. You know, when you're talking about like all of this kind of esoteric abstract kind of stuff, like you have an experience on making difficult things understandable to young people. How do you think, how does that make your writing unique?
Ooh, I definitely see the magic in science and in math and things like that. That's what led me to physics.
Mhm.
When I was a student, my favorite subjects were physics and philosophy because I imagined or I understood them as the why and the how. Right?
Uh,
The philosophy was kind of like the why, like diving into these very like you said, like abstract ideas, and the physics explained those things in my brain. It just made it make sense. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Well, what does energy look like in interaction? What does energy look like in our creativity? And how do those concepts show up in the more esoteric ways? So that's where it shows up in my book. I think I might not be talking about, I might not explicitly state a physics concept, but if you look for them, you can find them. And in my early career as a writer, as a poet, I would always have some sort of reference to something in physics, in math. And now I just kind of like embed it a little bit more.
I love, which again goes back to like knowing how to make it accessible to younger readers, which maybe they'd be turned off if you were like too explicit about it. But when you kind of
Yeah.
weave it in, it makes sense. Well, so let's dig into your writing. That's what people are here to find out about. And you have this really amazing book that's out, and you're doing a book tour. So maybe a little later you can give a shout out to what else you have coming up. But Why the Birds Fly Back. Tell us all about the book and what was your inspiration.
Ooh, Why the Birds Fly Back is a very, very special story.
Mhm.
It is a memorial of some of my family members. It is um, a an ode to the power of collective healing and pouring into the youth, and the relationships, the importance of the relationships that we have in our own lineage right there at home. So it's about, as I mentioned the other day when we spoke, it's about a young Marcia Claire Swallowtail, and she finds herself very disappointed when she moves to a new town. But this town just so happens to be her ancestral home, and there's a magic that blossoms when she moves there. She starts having these strange dreams, and she sees her family tree is burning, and she's called to help put it out. But she has no idea how to do that, and so we uh, we walk with Marcia as she is supported by her community, and she's supported by her ancestors, those who are living and those who are have transitioned into different realms, and empowered to find her place in her family and remind her family members that they also have a very important place with each other as well.
I love that. And we're gonna be talking about kind of like the big themes and the meaning of it, but I just want to say how much I love the characters in the book. I mean, when you
Aw.
open it up, like the characterization, like you get it immediately who she is and where she fits into her family. And I think it's so, you have it's this fantasy novel, but the family is so relatable. Like as also one of four siblings, like I just like it felt like I got her family so immediately, and the relationship between the parents, I just want to say that before we get into like all the bigger picture of it. It's also just like a fun read and very relatable.
Aw.
But so we know like one of the most important elements of writing a fantasy novel is world building, and you have
Mhm.
this parallel world called the Traverse, which is it's kind of between the spirit realm and the dream world. So tell us, how did you come up with that? How did you go about creating that?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I think that I find myself in some sort of traverse
Mm,
sometimes when I'm dreaming and the dreams seem so real. Like I can like recall them very easily when I wake up and I feel like whatever I encountered in the dream is directly applicable to my life. As soon as I wake
mm,
up, I got to change, I got to do something,
mm,
right? And I drew from that experience in my own dreams to create the traverse. But in Marsha's world, it is this like it's very mysterious and we don't really know too much about it. Even by the end of the novel,
mm,
it's kind of like this place where a lot can happen. You have a little bit of control, but not too much.
mhm,
It you kind of work with the traverse when you're in it, and if things get too intense or too scary, you can withdraw from the effects of the traverse. But when you really need to dive in, there might be a messenger or a guide that comes to you to help you navigate those areas as well. And I like to think that when we I'm very, very spiritual and I do a lot of meditation. And there are moments when I'm awake and I'm deep in a meditation um, that I have similar experiences like
mm,
that. Have you ever had any like experiences where you're
mm.
daydreaming or you're dreaming and you're like, I'm not sure where I go, but something comes to lead you or
Yeah, definitely. That realm, you're like, well, that wasn't a dream. I was kind of awake, but I kind of wasn't. Like, yeah, exactly. And I
right.
also love that, like, again, you're talking about like your background in science, that you're able to kind of tap into both of these, because sometimes people see them as being two totally different, like the scientific and the spiritual, and yet you kind of bring them together. I and you're also to talk about like another major theme in the book is about family. I mean, the whole reason she even goes into the traverse is, and she sees the family tree burning, and she's trying to um, kind of help her family, and as you say, it's also the support of her community. What do you want young readers to take away from this? Because it kind of strikes me that the age group that this is for, this is a time when you're kind of have a lot of mixed feelings about your family. Like you're kind of
Yeah.
breaking away from them, but you're also kind of comparing your family to other families and seeing how the world is. So, what do you want them to get from this book in terms of like family?
I would love for young readers to, you know, when you're young and you're really taught to like respect your elders, even if it's like older siblings that you're like, well, they're acting crazy, what, you know what I mean? Like respect your elders or and all of those concepts. I would love for young readers to walk away with an understanding of the balance and the reasons why um, respecting your elders, but also being bold in your becoming as a member of your family, right? Especially this age group of kind of like 10 to 15 where you have this very real sense or you're forming this very real sense of who you are, who you might be able to become. A lot of times I think in that age group we as adults we tend to kind of like not on purpose but put children in a box or kind of like make them feel like they're not there yet. You know what I mean? Like you don't know nothing yet, right?
Yeah.
But they are still in that age group. They're still very untainted, if you will. A lot of the times, experience has not placed limits around their minds. But they're also able to think abstractly. They're able to think beyond themselves. They're able to maybe look at their parents and see, okay, I'm starting to see you more than a superhero. I'm starting to see your humanity, and that can be very tough sometimes. But I hope that, especially getting the perspective of Marsha's parents, Marvin and Yana, young children have, or young adults have an example of like, okay, my parents, they're not perfect either. Like they're still trying to figure out this is the first time they've been that age. This is the first time they've been an
Right.
adult. This is the first time they're experiencing things too. and maybe have grace for their parents, but also grace for themselves while they're going through
Mm,
such transitions, and like a little reminder that they are very much so magical and they're very much so
mm.
powerful, even if it's hard for some people to see it all the time.
Yeah, that was one thing I thought was so interesting about your book because a lot of times like young people and older people are kind of pitted against each other. Like it's like
Mhm.
you respect your elders, therefore you keep yourself quiet and you don't
Yeah.
maybe speak out, or you speak out and it's because you're putting them down or you're breaking away from them. How does your book, I think, help kind of kids navigate that you can still respect your elders? I'm kind of like you were talking about, you still respect your elders, but you can also find your own voice and, like you said, be bold and because she kind of has it like an like you said with her parents or with those the great uncle that's kind of helping her in the traverse, like how does she kind of have that find that balance?
Honestly, I think it's more on the adults in her life to
Mm-hmm.
create that space. So when we finished the book, my goal was I told myself this book is a success if one family reads this together and discusses it
Mm-hmm.
together. So I don't think it's on the youth that to necessarily claim that space. I think it's on the adults to create a space for them, right? For example, there are moments in my classroom where there's an expectation set. Like this is what's happening. I'm not going to change my mind. However, I want you to argue why you think I should. I'm going to manage that expectation by letting you know this no, we're not going to be able to go outside in advisory today. But give me your best shot. Like let's practice what it would look like to have a respectful dialogue here. You know what the outcome is already, but I want to hear from you. So maybe next time we have the opportunity, I can recall on that. You know what I mean? Like creating a space for children um to feel seen. And I think characters like Mrs. Loretta does that amazing. Like she's like, "Hey Marshall, what do you think? I'm having this conversation with your mother, but I want to hear from you." And her father does that sometimes, especially towards the end of the book. Her father gives her brother a chance to explain himself or to step outside of what would normally be demonstrated as respectful. Real quick, just give it to me. Give me what you got. I'm going to rein you back if you go too far, but I want you to have that opportunity because if we don't give them that opportunity in a safe space where they know they are loved unconditionally, they might try it in a place that is dangerous for them, especially as Black youth. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really really important.
Yeah, that's I that because I think I did read the book a little differently as a parent than maybe I would have as a young person because it would be I think it would be great for a family to read it together, like you said. And something else I thought was really cool is you talked about in I think I saw this on social media. You said this isn't a novel about Black resilience or ability to endure trauma, even though those stories are important. This is about the fact that Black joy, community, and magic are not based in trauma. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. That was one of the big inspirations behind writing this novel. I love reading. I love reading Black stories, stories that center Black girls because I can see myself in them. Um, However, a lot of the stories that I was reading, those girls were just getting beat up. Like the world was just throwing it at them. And that creates for an engaging story. It creates for it like, it rallies you. It reminds you how strong you are. But I wanted to write a story where there was a girl that was poured into instead of a girl that had to pour, right? Um, it's so important to show both sides of the story because as a community, as a community of stolen people who have made their way here in this country, there's so much trauma.
Mhm.
But our history extends way before that begins. Our and our DNA remembers that. If our stories don't reflect that, then we fall into an echo chamber, I believe. We can fall into this echo chamber where trauma is all we know. Trauma is who we are. but that's not the case.
Mhm.
We experience it, we transmute it into something that is so much bigger and so much more powerful than those experiences that we have had that kind of keep us in a box. And it's kind of like I'm kind of reaching here for a
Mhm.
parallel, but I was reading Our Prison's Obsolete by Angela Davis, and she speaks about not being able to create a future that you have not yet imagined.
Mm.
And if we get stuck in the echo chamber of trauma, then that's just what our experience is going to continue to be. And I don't think that that's an accurate reflection of what our experience is as a whole in general. So I wanted to add to the story in a different way.
I love that. And I just want to say that I've gotten some great comments. People saying, I love that girl who is poured into. People say, agree, they're agreeing with you. And so tell me then, what did it mean to you that this story, obviously you're a Black woman as the author, that also the editor and publisher were Black women. What did that mean to you, especially on a story like this?
Oh, it's like it's refreshing. It's so refreshing. It's empowering. It was intentional, and I hope to see more of it. Like I hope that we're not the only story or the there's I hope to see more of it in the future because allyship is very important. It's not the only pathway. It is not the only pathway. And the more that we extend spaces to each other, it's kind of like it's only up from here. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
we are climbing up together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's hard to put into words the feeling of it's almost like it was almost so intentional that eventually we didn't think about it after that. Like
Mm.
after it was set that this is what it was going to be, this is how we were going to move forward. It was just natural, and I hope that I hope that one day it is not such a feat. You know what I mean? Like it
Right.
becomes so normalized that it's just another thing that
Not a
happens
big deal.
because
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And shout out to Stirred Stories. I see you're on here, who is the publisher and also facilitated setting up this interview. So we're very grateful. And we don't really have much time, but I have to mention something I saw on social media because you're posting about your book tour. So I think you're talking tonight, right, on a panel. And this topic sounded so great. It was see if I remember, it was storytelling as ancestral duty. Do you want to just give
Mm.
us a very, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know we said 30 minutes, but do you want to just give us like a brief little taste of that and then tell people where they can go if they want to watch the panel?
Yeah, absolutely. So this afternoon or this evening. I don't know, 6 o'clock. Time is crazy right now. I've been all up and down the road for the past 24 hours, but I'll be at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, Florida A&M at 6. And we'll be talking about Why the Birds Fly Back with my editor. And storytelling as an ancestral duty. That is how our history was first recorded.
Mm,
We as a people, our first teachers, our first historians were the griots, were the storytellers, were the carriers of our archival memory. So when we are gifted with the ability to do that, it's not just a talent, it's not just a gift, it is a duty.
mm,
Because while I write fiction,
mhm,
this story was very much so given to me for a
mm,
reason. It might not be a historical account, but there is memory there. There is reminders there. There is a call to action that is very, very, very much nonfiction based in
mm,
reality. So and this goes for anybody, not just black writers, but when you are gift in any gift at the same time, any gift that you have, it is Yes, a part of your calling. Yes, a part of your purpose, but very much so your duty to
Mm.
yourself, to who you are, your spirit, your soul, your lineage, your ancestry, those who came before you, those who will come after you, for you to stand in that, fill up all that space, and just add to the story that is life.
Mm. Oh, that's so amazing. This is just I just feel like anybody watching this is going to be so uplifted because this is
Oh,
so empowering.
I hope
Yeah. Well, so what's next for you is from terms of, do you think, are you working on another book? I know this one just came out, so maybe it's too
so.
soon to ask, but are you planning to write more fiction books or what's next for you as far as your writing?
We definitely want to get Why the Birds Fly Back in as many hands and as many hearts as we can. But like I said, this is my duty. This is my ancestral duty, right? So there's no way I'm gonna stop writing. It does something for me. It feeds me in a very, very real way. And so yeah, there's a lot more to come. There's a lot more
Oh,
to come.
excited. Well, when that happens, we will be sure to share about it in our stories. And of course, you can go to and look at her Instagram if you want to find out where she is going next on her book tour. Or we will also share that in our stories. And if you would like your very own copy of Why the Birds Fly Back, you can go to our pinned post on Instagram, enter the giveaway. You only have until midnight tonight, so don't miss out. And
Run.
yes, and thank you so much for being here. This is really wonderful to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor. I'm just so full right now.
Well, I'm so grateful as well, and grateful to Stirred Stories for connecting us. And thanks to all of you for watching. We appreciate you. And if you joined us late, you can watch the whole thing. It'll be up in just a few minutes on Instagram and later on our YouTube channel. So bye, everybody. See you next week.
See you later.